Being the appointed hour, this will call to order the meeting of the Gardner City Council Public Service Committee on Thursday, August 3rd, 2023. All members are present. Is anybody filming or taping the meeting other than staff? Proceed to the first order of business, which is appeals of water and sewer bills. The first being 185 Woodland Avenue in Gardner. Well, look who's back!
Yeah, I had to find my way here too. It's all new.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so you had a good journey there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's good. Good for you.
Yes, sir. It was hot too.
I'll bet. Okay.
Wow.
Good morning. Have a seat.
Special. Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
All set?
Yes.
Could you just identify yourself for the record, please? Your name and address?
Susan Tebow. My address is 58 Caruth Road in Templeton, Mass., but I'm here for my property at 185 Woodland Ave in Gardner.
Okay. This is an appeal hearing of the Gardner Public Service Committee on your appeal of a water bill and sewer bill. What would you like to tell us?
During the time, so the water sewer, this property was built in 2019. It has two-bedroom units, and the water bills have been pretty consistent since the property was built, and until I received, the bill of, with interest, it said $806.50. That's about at least four times higher than it had been. I actually had my builder, who I work with in real estate, come take a look at the property to make sure there was no leaks anywhere. The water department was good. They came back out and took a look and didn't think anything was wrong with the meter. But like I said, the property is, it's 4 years old. And I got statements from my tenants, from both tenants, because I wasn't quite sure which unit it was. In the downstairs unit, there was one tenant in each unit.
They're metered separately? The units?
They are metered separately, yes. There was one tenant in each unit. I brought copies of the rental agreements with me to show that they were in fact the tenants in place, as well as email copies that they sent me. One tenant was not even living in the property, the basement unit. She was not even living in the property during this period. She was paying rent but not living there.
She had access to it though?
She did have access. But she was living with her parents in Gardner while she was going through a sickness, and there was nobody even there. The upstairs unit, very responsible older lady, and she was gone much of the time. She had somebody she was helping take care of. She was staying with because they were sick, and also. She was, running down to Connecticut to see her daughter who was pregnant at the time. Plus, she was in Florida on vacation for 11 days during that period. So, and then I understand that the meter started going backwards on one of the units. So then they replaced the meters on both units recently. And if you'd like to have these copies of the emails, in rental agreements, I'm happy to share those.
And what is it that you're asking of us?
I am asking that the water bill be abated to an amount that is consistent with prior bills, which is probably still too much because, like I said, the building was mostly vacant during that period.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Director, do you have something that you can offer?
Just typically when meters fail or slow down, they stop working, they don't speed up. That's typically what we've seen. I actually have not seen a meter speed up or jump or things like that. So I can't explain unless there was a leak on the property. A toilet running that someone didn't notice. Like if the tenant wasn't there, and the toilet handle was stuck, and just a little bit of water was leaking through. That's just what.
So the meters have been replaced?
The meters since then have been replaced, yeah. The touch pad was not working, so when they went out to physically touch the touch pad out inside of the building, that was not whether the connection or it was a faulty touch pad, but the meter, to my knowledge, was working.
But I understand one of the meters started running backwards, which was the reason why they ended up getting replaced.
Yes, and that's, again, when they fail, they either slow down, stop, and sometimes they actually go backwards, but they don't typically jump forward. I haven't seen that.
So if it was going backwards, that would reduce the amount of usage
Yes.
But that was after the
Yes.
fact.
after this billing period?
Yes.
Yeah. Gentlemen? Questions?
Do we have any information about the next reading?
Yes, they went out and they read it. The bill that was in question was in March.
Yep.
They went out in June. It went back to normal. I gotta be honest, I don't know when they replaced it. I don't know the exact date when they replaced the meter, but it was probably replaced.
It was pretty recently.
Yeah. And then the reading, they went out again in July and checked it, and the reading again is back to normal.
Do we know which unit it is that the faulty meter was associated with? Or the billing is associated?
It's the one identified with the account number 187. So one ends in account number 185 and one 187. That's how we identify the two different
Okay.
meters. The bill you have in
And
front
this
of
is
you.
187, right?
Correct.
And do we know whether that's upstairs or downstairs?
I actually don't know.
I mean, we have it identified
Okay,
in our books. But
just trying to get
yeah.
a sense of which meter. So, because both were replaced,
Mhm.
it's hard to know now.
Right. And both tenants said they have never seen either toilet running. Like I said, the building's almost new.
Mhm. The entire building, or is it just
It's a
renovation?
brand new building.
Yeah, okay. Anything else?
And just to confirm, there's been no upgrades, no appliance replacements?
No.
Nothing, just a mystery?
Yes.
And we did confirm that there was, this particular meter was, or one of the meters anyway, was acting funny,
Yes. Yep. Correct.
and that prompted replacement of both.
Yes. Yeah, we figured while we gained access, we just did both of them.
Funny, I don't mean ha-ha, I mean.
No,
Right.
Oh, well, I guess I appreciate that meters, I guess in the director's experience, don't go forward. It was acting funny, as you stated. So, without, any other further information, I would be open to reducing this by some amount. Or what was the normal? Like the previous.
In
high,
between
maybe?
127 and 220.
220, I mean, we can just, I would be open to reducing the entire bill to something like maybe $250 from the total. And calling that the amount.
Is that your motion?
That's I will move to do so.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the motion?
I think that's, yeah, with there being an issue with the meter, I think that's fair.
can I just clarify, was that reducing to 250 or reducing by 250?
250,
Down to 2.
down to $250.
The normal,
A little higher than normal, but
yeah.
with a
Significantly reduction.
significant reduction to it.
Any further discussion? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a
Good luck.
day. Thank you.
So the next one is 16 Woodland Ave. Another mystery. No input from the department on this one, other than Bill.
How long has this building been?
We moved in 2018.
Oh,
We did
okay.
most of the work ourselves.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Have a seat.
Thank you.
Is this the one?
That's the seat of honor.
This is a seat of honor.
Or hot seat, one of the-
Okay.
You decide. Good morning. This is your appeal of a water sewer bill that you received for property at 16 Woodland Avenue.
That's correct,
Can you
right.
just identify yourself? You're,
I'm Patricia Stark.
okay, and you're one of the owners of the property?
I am.
Okay. What would you like to tell us?
Well, there's only two of us there, and it's a, 11,000 square foot property. My husband and I, and we got a water bill that was like, almost blew us off our seat. And we couldn't figure out where the, he's got a PhD in math and stuff like that, so he said, that's enough water to fill 3 swimming pools, 3 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Where's it coming from? We've never had a bill like that, ever. And so I said, I'm just gonna call about it, because maybe it's we checked around the property, nothing was leaking. It's a big property, we're right across from the Congregational Church,
This is right in the corner?
right on the corner, the big brick house, yeah. And at any rate, we couldn't find any leaks, no water in the basement, okay, no running toilets, nothing. And so I said, I'm gonna get to the bottom of this mystery, so we called, and they had a guy come out, and he put a new meter on. Okay, thought maybe it might be the meter.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wrote to whoever the head is here. You're the head, okay, you got my email then.
He's the big shot.
You're the big shot,
Oh, yeah.
okay. And that's my story. I just kind of, said to myself, if they go back on our records, they'll see that we're always around, $200 for what do they call it, sewer and whatever, water.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just kind of wanted to bring it to your attention, that's all. I mean, I think we paid it, but that's it, anyway.
Okay, thank
Don't
you.
know where the water's from, where it went.
Mr. Director, what can you tell us?
If you look at the bill, which would be the 4th sheet, kind of the billing history, it looks like your water sewer rate was like around $70 to $80, and then it slowly jumped up to 200, almost 300, 400, 700. Is there more people or usage? I mean, the bill almost tripled in a matter of one billing cycle, and it remained very, very high.
Have no idea.
So I think there's something going on the property that's, and it may still be going on.
Might be a leak underneath somewhere,
That's what your billing history looks like.
but it's not in the house.
Well, it
Okay.
would be past your meter because it's reading the water that's being drawn inside. So it appears like there's a toilet or something that's leaking that you may not notice. But I mean, your billing is clearly tripled, almost tenfold, actually.
Yeah, no, nobody else is living there,
Okay. Have you had a professional or a plumber or anybody else look at the system?
no.
Okay.
There's nothing, no, we didn't.
And the reason I ask that is that, as the director indicates, that there's been kind of a steady increase in usage
Yeah,
over the course of time.
how long,
I mean, even, we went on and read it, with a brand new meter,
Mhm.
after only 65 days, your usage is 2,600, which is reflective of what your other high usage are, so there's something going on your property.
jeez,
You see what I'm saying?
I see, yeah.
And then something catastrophic looks like it happened, during the billing month of, between March and June.
Yeah,
I mean, even the March one's higher, so it must have been February probably even, right, where it's.
I think you have a leaky toilet, and it's simple, you could put like, dye, preferably blue or green, in the back of your toilet, and just go around the backs of your toilets and put that food coloring in it, and just wait. And if that appears in your toilet bowl, it's dry, it's cycling through.
wouldn't we hear it though?
You might, it might be, It might be very quiet, it might be very, very slow, just that baffle not quite sticking, might be just enough to, and it, over
Might
the
just be a
course of.
flapper, or something as
Right.
simple as that.
And after 90 days, if it's only a
That
gallon
much
a
water?
minute, a gallon a minute over 90 days, which doesn't seem like a lot, it adds up real fast.
Wow.
I'm wondering whether, would you be willing to have the assistant looked at by a
Oh, sure.
plumber?
Sure.
I think maybe, I'm wondering whether we should hold off on deciding about something like this until a future date, and in the meantime, you can have it looked at to see if you can find what the possible source of the leak is and get it rectified. Otherwise, it's gonna be continuing to be an issue for you.
Jeez.
Hey, check your
I
outside
hate
spigots.
wasting water.
Yeah. Check your outside spigots, things like that.
They're all, we checked them.
Yeah.
They're all tight. There's no obvious soft spots on the property, you know, I mean, where there would be
It's a big
water.
property though, you know, it's hard to
Yeah.
assess professionally without. having
Okay,
the
we'll do that.
expertise.
How many bathrooms are in the house? Oh, when you start using your phone.
Let's see, we've got a half bath on the first floor. And then upstairs we have 3. One is a pull chain toilet.
I'll check that one first.
Okay. We don't use it, but it's.
Well, that may be, anyway,
Right.
I think what we would like to do is find out a little more information about
Okay.
what the potential source of the
All right.
problem is. Otherwise, even if we did something for you today, it's gonna be a continuing problem, it appears.
Very good.
So we'll hold off on making a decision on this.
There's no problem with
And
that.
then if you could provide some when you have the results of the inspection, then maybe you can let the director know, let the department know, and we'll have an update.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen
Okay.
and ladies.
Good luck.
I'm impressed with your building, by the way.
Thank you. Did mostly ourselves.
What's that?
Did mostly of it ourselves.
Really? Cool. You do a lot of work down by our
We'll
house
have to
there.
request more time.
Yeah, we
I
did
mean, you
water
know,
pipes and stuff.
let's-
with the water
let's just get
pipes.
it on the
There'll,
record.
there'll be more this fall when the rotary starts.
Really? There's gonna be a rotary in there. I wish people knew how to drive it.
I wish people know how to drive.
I wish they did too, and I wish they were not having elbow issues with the indicator. You know? It's too hard for them to reach up and to put that indicator on what they're gonna do. My husband being one of them. And he said, shh.
This is on the record, don't forget.
He
Come on,
knows.
this.
That's okay. And he said, well, they know what I'm gonna do. I'm like, yeah, right, guys. They do.
Let's see you next time.
Thank you
Okay,
very
thank you for
much.
coming in.
Yep.
I'll move to request more time on that abatement.
Second.
Well, that's not on our regular, well, you know, it's not on our
Oh,
council
right,
calendar.
right, it's on item.
So we'll just grant the applicant more time on this one, or
Leave to that turn.
next.
Congratulations on being moved Denise. That'll come when you leave.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Settling into retirement okay there, Calvin?
A little bit, yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is a meeting of the Public Service Committee of the Gardner City Council, and the purpose of of it is to, one of the purposes of this morning is to consider an appeal by you of a water bill that you received earlier this year.
So I have
What would you like to tell us? Go ahead.
So I technically have not received this water bill, but I was told this will come in for today. This would be a reflection upon my next water bill.
Okay, could you just identify yourself for the record, please?
Yes,
Your
I
name
am
and address?
Kimberly Netting and I live at 65 Waterford Street.
Okay.
And so on Friday, June 23rd, while my family and I were out of state, I had a friend check on the property. She heard running water. Upon investigation, the basement had flooded a couple inches of water. Come to find out, the cold water hose for the water tank had snapped due to corrosion. My family and I just purchased the property almost a year ago. Upon the inspection of the house, the water tank I think was 2019, so not that old. It looks as though, according to the plumber who came to inspect the water heater, that someone who wasn't licensed had replaced the nipple for the cold water hose, but did so improperly, so it caused a leak, which caused the corrosion. So it snapped, and so we had to replace the whole water tank. We had to purchase multiple fans, dehumidifiers to
So hot water tank, you mean?
Yes, yes. And so had to throw out a lot of my children's toys. It's a little disheartening. And so, like I said, it was a few inches of water. Thankfully, my stepfather was able to come to turn off the water before it worsened. But that's why I'm seeking an abatement today for my next water bill.
Okay. So when did this occur?
Friday, June 23rd.
So that period hasn't been billed as yet?
No, it's not.
It could be like next week, that's a period would end.
Looks like a bill,
They're
This
in
is
process now.
through May.
so it'll be going out in,
Yeah,
Yeah,
anytime.
like,
that.
Okay.
can we,
I could go grab
yeah,
the
it's-
reading, I'm sure it's here by now.
yeah,
Yeah, we'll just take a look, see if we have a reading.
Okay.
Okay.
not off with us.
We'll see if you can maximize our time here this morning.
Okay.
We have a time, we have time.
Oh, no, I was just wondering what the date was itself.
Is this your first time here? In the building?
Yeah. I parked down below, knocked on the door and asked whoever was there, nice guy, where am I going? He said, well, you're going to Manka Drive. I said, okay, but isn't this, because I was just gonna walk through,
Yeah.
but I guess, I'm not sure you can. They said, no, Manka Drive. It's like, oh, okay.
It'd be a circuitous
We do not
route.
have the reading
Yeah,
as of yet.
yeah.
We do not have the reading as of yet.
Okay.
Say again, I'm sorry?
There's no reading as of yet.
No reading as of it right now? Okay. Anything else you'd like to tell us?
No, just replace the water heater, something I wasn't expecting as a new homeowner, but, so the issue was fixed. That's why I'm seeking an abatement bill for the water bill, that apparently is not complete, so.
Well, and we're happy to consider it, but we'd have to have sufficient information in order to consider it. One of the important pieces is what is the bill?
Mm-hmm.
And how is the usage different from what it has been in the past? What could be attributable to the problem that you had?
I'm happy to come back. I was just advised to still attend this meeting, hence my presence, but I'm happy to come back to the next meeting if that makes more sense.
I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Until we have the bill.
I think we wouldn't be able to act on, that would be, we'd be guessing at things, and we don't want to do that. So with members, okay, we'll postpone this, or continue this hearing
Okay.
at our next meeting, or presumably at our next meeting, and we'll consider it when we have more information.
Okay, is there a date for the next meeting?
Not as yet.
Okay.
You'll be notified.
Okay,
But it'll be on, at this time of day, most likely,
okay,
and
excellent.
probably on a Thursday.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you for coming.
Oh, the next order of business is a sump pump discharge notice.
This is just a letter that, actually Rob and I were up on Pearl Street, and noticed that there was a sump pump discharge at, I think it was 152 Pearl Street.
Water coming down a driveway.
Actually, there was a discharge right on the edge of the road that was flowing out on the street. Like,
They had actually excavated and installed a drain pipe with a diffuser top that pops up when it gets flow, and we saw the water in the street, followed it, and it had been done within the last month or two, probably.
But Cody actually has reached out to me, we've been in communication through an email, and he's gonna rectify the situation, so.
Okay, so you'll follow up on it?
Yeah.
Maybe just give us a follow-up when it happens at a subsequent meeting, maybe,
Sure. Yeah.
so we know what the status of it is. Do we know if, you know, the guy did it himself, or whether he had a contractor?
It seemed like on a weekend,
Oh, so-
because we didn't see any excavators out there, we would have noticed
I
that.
think that I remember seeing a small one at one of the properties up there. I don't remember it specifically, but I have a recollection of there being a small excavator on the side, on the north side. Is it on the north side of River Road?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, anyway, so we'll have more information on
Yeah,
that.
he's gonna fix it. He's
Okay.
been proactive.
Good enough. Okay. Continuing, next item is poll petitions, 10933. Without going through the whole line, this has to do with Elm Street and Cross Street. This is a continuing saga of the location of new poles and new overhead wires on Elm Street, near Elm Street School, and across the street from there. Just for the record, we had a meeting with various representatives, although this is a petition by National Grid. It involves the Department of Transportation, who is involved with a safe path to schools.
Safe routes to school.
Safe routes to school construction project that requires pole, well, apparently requires pole changes that affect the existing poles and existing properties on Elm Street. We had a public hearing on the pole petition at the council. Two residents from the area expressed their concerns about the plan for the new locations of poles and wires. Based upon those concerns, a meeting was held. Turns out that not just National Grid is involved, but the Department of Transportation, because it's their project, and also their consulting engineering firm who prepared the plans, which is Ty and Bond. We had a meeting, a phone meeting subsequent to our last Public Service Committee meeting. Myself and our city engineer, Rob Oliver, with representatives from Ty and Bond, Department of Transportation, and National Grid. As a result of that meeting, they agreed to provide some alternative plans for location of the poles and lines, which were subsequently submitted. And as a result of that, I invited representatives from National Grid, Department of Transportation, and Ty and Bond to attend the meeting, and nobody has arrived. But we do have the plans. Rob, all of our city engineers reviewed them and provided us with a memorandum of the impact of the alternate plan. So here we are today. Although one additional item is that we received an email from the manager of the project, a fellow by the name of David Shedd at Department of Transportation. Even though this is a National Grid petition, they're not really the driving force behind it. They didn't prepare the plan as they usually do. It was a Department of Transportation project. They outsourced the plan to Ty and Bond. So the plan is Ty and Bond's plan with the participation of the Department of Transportation. But any change to it has to come from National Grid because it's their petition. So with all of that, we have over on the overhead screen the new plan that I'm going to ask our engineer, Mr. Oliver, to please explain.
All right, so as I understand it from these plans, let's start down here. So this is the intersection of Lawrence Temple, so moving north. On this sheet, there are no changes proposed. When we get a little further north, and I'll zoom in a little bit. If I can scroll around. So part of the concerns were the relocation of overhead wires and poles from, as they exist on the east side of Elm Street to the south side of Elm Street. So what we had suggested, Councilor Walsh and I met with the groups you mentioned, were to look at some alternates that would maybe avoid that. So I think what's highlighted in green here is what was originally proposed and what's currently on the plans, which was relocating poles from the east side to the west side, where they don't, well, this one in particular, where they don't currently exist, with new overhead wires in this location, and then crossing back over Elm Street to where they currently run. So what is in green here would have been new, well, is currently proposed as new. So what they looked at was, rather than doing that, the overhead wires run to a point, and then keeping them on that point, or crossing in the existing location. I'm sorry, the existing lines are here, they cross over Elm Street in roughly this location. So we asked them to look at, can you continue that scenario? The reason they hadn't were improvements at the driveways, widening of sidewalks. There wasn't room for the poles. There was room on the west side. And that's why they had proposed moving them. So you see this blue dashed line. This is where they're showing an alternative to keeping to putting the poles back on that side. So a new pole with an anchor and an easement. At this point, they're outside of the city's right-of-way and onto city property. So they need an easement from the city to do so, which I believe wouldn't be an issue. It's simpler to get that than it would be to get an easement on private property, or need a taking on private property. So this would be the overhead wires now located here and here, and then they continue on up the street. Oops, wrong way.
Oh, Rob, the light red line on there, is that the existing?
Yeah, these are all existing.
That's where it's just going from the edge of the road to the other side of the sidewalk, onto
Correct.
property.
Correct.
Onto the
Yep,
street school.
so these are all services
Yep.
that run over.
Okay.
Now, they'll have to do something with those services because this pole is now over here. But, I mean, these overhead wires are currently there anyway, so
Mhm.
my assumption is that they'll stay there.
It's not a much bigger span.
And then as we move further north up the cross street, so this again, green was what's currently proposed. The blue is what they're proposing, or in this alternate. So another pole, another guy wire, and then just coming back up to existing here. So essentially maintaining what's currently there, just with a slightly different layout by pushing the poles into the school properties rather than keeping them close up to the road. So for my look at it, I think there'd be little impact to the city-owned property. There was a tree here on city property that would probably need to be trimmed. My preference would be to trim that tree rather than the trees that are in front of the residences on the other side of the street. Additional easements required, I don't think that's an issue. I'm sure the city council would be willing to grant those easements since they're on city property. In fact, they're not even easements at that point, they're just, what do we?
Overhead?
Yeah, what do we call them for the Uptown Rotary, because we had city properties there. They were easements, but they were temporary and permanent, but the city just has to, it just goes through the council. So there'd be some trimming there, but very little impact. I think the layout, unless others in the city, have some issue with pushing those poles a little bit further onto the school property, I don't see any impact or any reason why.
Right now, they're on the edge of the sidewalk, right?
Yeah,
So they're better off the sidewalk
yeah.
in either event.
It would, I mean, the goal of the Safe Routes to Schools program is to create suitable access to these areas, accessible access, widen the sidewalks. So this would actually move those poles. Either way, it's moving the poles out of the sidewalk in front of the schools. In this case, now putting them behind the sidewalk, which makes it better for DPW in the winter. It makes it better for people walking. So I think this is an improvement over what was proposed personally. And yes, the overhead wires will now still be in front of the schools, but they are on either end anyway, so I think this is, for me, it's a preference. And I think the impacts to both 137 and 147, that I know Mr. Brooks was concerned about, relatively, for the most part, go away. I don't think it just goes back to more what's existing.
Kind of similar to where it is now.
Correct.
Yeah. Moves a couple of feet, it looks like the overhead line. Okay, any questions of the members?
This probably makes more sense to me, so.
Okay. Our, one of the residents is here, Mr. Brooks, do you have any comment or input?
No, that sounds reasonable. I think the poles right now, if I recall correctly, are on the sidewalk, but on the street side of the sidewalk. So pushing them back further probably makes it easier for snow removal because it takes them out of the way completely.
Mm-hmm.
And my concern, I mean, aside from the aesthetics, was just, you know, if the original plan were going, what's the impact? Longer term impact of snow removal and traffic.
I know you were concerned about egress from your driveway with the new pole that was located.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a change, and after backing out of that driveway for 50 years without a pole, I might have trouble remembering there's a pole.
Okay.
I do have a question for the city engineer though.
Sure.
These are tie and bond drawn maps?
Yes.
Is National Grid given their stamp of approval?
No, so what I assume would have to happen now is it would go through Time Bond, Mass DOT, to approve this change. This project's going through the Office of Community Development and Planning, so Trevor's office would probably, I would assume, have to give their blessing on the change. So it'll go through those channels. At some point, Mass DOT will send it back to National Grid to say, you know, you'll need to get petitions to do this work. So it's probably gonna take some time. As I understand it, this project was online to actually go move forward this year. There's been, I guess, some issues with obtaining easements, takings, et cetera. I believe Mass DOT has pushed it off. They were gonna bid it this year, they're gonna bid it next year, so there's more time now. So this change, my concern originally was we were gonna hold up the project. I don't think that's the case now because they pushed the bid date off a year, so I don't think that's an issue anymore.
Thank you. So right now, we're just waiting for the parties to come back.
I think one of the things we can consider doing, as I look at it, is because they went to the, as a result of our request and our meeting, they changed the plans to accommodate the concerns that were raised. And I think if we as a committee, even though they have to change the petition, indicate that from our point of view, the alternate plan is preferred, and we have a vote to that effect here, and notify the people who are involved on that 14-person email, then at least they'll know where we stand on it. I mean, the next step after that would be among that group to change whatever they have to change so that National Grid can either file a new petition or amend the existing one to reflect the new plan and the new location. So that's the way I tend to look at it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so I'd entertain a motion
To do so.
that the Public Service Committee endorses the alternate plan for pole and overhead wire locations submitted recently, and transmit that maybe at the request, with our request to the city engineer to communicate that to the various people that are associated with this project, and that and we await their further response to the necessary amendments to or substitution of poll petition.
So moved.
Second.
Yeah. Do you understand that okay, Rob?
Do.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Good. Thank you for attending, Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Counselor.
Okay, continuing. We have 1002 26, a petition by National Grid for Manka Drive to install one single pole on Manka Drive beginning at a point 620 feet west of the center line, the intersection of West Broadway and Manka Drive, and install one single pole to bring what does PH mean?
Phase.
To bring a three-phase power to new electric vehicle charging stations at a car dealership. And the matter was referred to us at our meeting on July 3rd. And Mr. Engineer, what do you have to tell us?
I looked at the plans, I looked at the locations that are staked out right down the street. I had no issue with it.
Okay. And the purpose of it is to just for them to have access to sufficient electrical power to install a charging station?
Yeah, I would assume they're installing three-phase to put in level 2 or level 3 chargers on their lot for future or current electric vehicle use.
And future as well.
Yeah.
We, this one I understood pretty well. Any?
No comment.
Any
I have no further questions or comments on this.
And I'd entertain a motion that the Service Committee recommend passage of the petition.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, we have review and approval of minutes for meetings dated June 15th and June 29th.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we waive the reading of the minutes of June 15th and June 29th and approve them as presented.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Continuing. The next order of business is a letter to the City Council from the Public Works Director regarding DPW staffing. Mr. Director.
Well, it started, we've had a staffing issue in the city for the DPW for several years now. It just seems to get at a critical point over the course of this summer. With some staff leaving, the ability to hire new staff, and then I also have some retirees that are coming up that have been here for 25 years. They have their 2A license and their CDL license. So we're gonna see a change over here at the DPW. What really brought it on was the public outcry for our parks and playgrounds and cemeteries, that the grass started growing and we just couldn't keep up with it. So I talked to my foreman, and I had him just write down how long it takes his crew to go out to the parks, playgrounds, and do each piece of property. And I had a general idea of what we did as far as the amount of properties we did, but when you started adding up all the intersections and the new properties that we take over, whether it's the city takes it from tax title, we're responsible for going out and mowing that. The list is actually, it grew a lot longer than I thought. And I was actually surprised. On the third sheet that you have is the amount of hours it takes, a breakdown of the cemeteries, parks, playgrounds, all the intersections, and the schools that are, I believe we're taking ownership of the LMA school in Stonefield. We're gonna be the municipal grounds, will be taking ownership of that. Waterford Street School is another addition. We're also mowing the water and wastewater plants, which was part of the takeover. We're paying 2 staff members out of water and sewer to take care of that. We only have 4 members of the DPW in municipal grounds to take care of all this. So when you add up all the hours, it's 256 hours to go and mow all these properties during the growing season. And this year, the growing season's still in August, which usually we get a break in the summer. That would mean the 4 municipal grounds department would have to work 64 hours a week to mow all this. And if we take time and we go up to Eaton Street and Park Street and we go cut the trees, which we've been up there working during the days to cut the trees, we're falling further and further behind. So now the grass comes between, now you're not just discharging, now you've got to bag it. So you're adding more and more hours on it to keep up. So I put this letter together, starting with municipal grounds, thinking that we're gonna need at least 4 full-time employees just to take care of the parks and playgrounds, at least during the growing season. And that doesn't include that we're gonna need 4 staff members to keep up with the trees, trimming and the tree work that's going on in the city, as well as other things. That doesn't include if we have breakdowns in the maintenance and the trailering and whatnot. So that's where the municipal grounds is. And I just wanted the council and the mayor and the public to be aware of where we're at. And then I took a look also at the highway department. We have 9 employees, 2 of which are foremen. And out of that, we have, there's 2 employees that are doing like the special projects, like up on Lawrence Street, where I have 2 guys up there doing the sidewalk. We can actually use 3, because one employee's using the excavator and there's a truck driver. As soon as the truck's full, the truck leaves, the excavator operator's waiting for the other truck. I just don't, it would be nice to have 2, it would just be way more cost effective, you know, to have 2 employees, but we just don't have the staff. But what I really wanted to get to as far as on the highway department is heading into the winter, we're gonna have a lot of plow routes that aren't gonna have coverage, or they're gonna be very slow, because if we make a plow route, instead of having 3 miles, it's gonna be 6 miles. It's gonna take us twice as long, and at that point, you're just trying to keep the roads open during a high, during an intense storm. So the reason I believe that we can't get employees is our salaries. We're just not paying enough. I called Dunkin' Donuts, I called McDonald's, I called Walmart, and the starting salary is between $16.50 and $18 to walk in. I would rather work in an air-conditioned Walmart than being out in 90-degree doing potholes. So I think the salaries need to be adjusted. And if you do laborers, you're gonna need to do CDLs. I mean, I haven't interviewed, we've had a help wanted sign up for years. I don't believe I've hired or even interviewed anyone with a 2A license or a CDL, because as soon as they ask for the salary, they can get far much more money working elsewhere. So I think we're at a critical point, at least definitely heading into the winter. You know, just keeping up with the grass is a visual, but if you translate grass growing versus plowing, you're gonna see it. So I just wanted to give the city to be aware.
Your correspondence is dated July 20th, some 13, 14 days ago. And I'm wondering if you've had a response from the mayor of any kind.
Well, the response was to put it, obviously, helpful to at least give it to the council. The council hasn't officially had a meeting with this letter, so.
But the mayor hasn't indicated to you about, I mean, we have to start with some executive action.
I'm assuming that at some point, him and I and the personnel director will sit down and have a conversation, because I believe the union is also in talks with.
Well, I mentioned it to the mayor recently, and he indicated that there's going to open the contract for bargaining on having to do with this particular topic.
Yeah.
Now, I just had a couple of questions. How is your budget funded for purposes of staffing, the number of staffing?
Well, between water and sewer, I believe I'm funded for 36 employees. The money's there.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah, but what happens is the guys are going out, and to cover that 24-hour deficit for municipal grounds, they're working overtime. So every so often, I can transfer from salary down to overtime.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been doing. And actually, even at the end of the year, the council's gonna be getting a request in your next meeting. I'm pulling $40,000 out of my budget to pay for street lighting, vehicle fuel, energy and utilities. If I had full staff, obviously I couldn't do that, but I mean, that's how short we are, you know.
So based upon current wage levels, you're fully funded for 36 staff?
Including water and sewer.
Including water, and you have how many?
About thirds down, so it's 27?
27.
26, 27, so in there.
you fund it for 36, then you have 27.
Correct.
And that's a function primarily, as you see it, of the wage scale?
I believe so, yeah. And I'm basing that on is, the staff that's been here, that have been here for 15, 20 years, they've stayed. The new staff, if I can interview them, and they do come to work, they're here for 2 years, they're trained, they're licensed, and they move on. And that's what I'm basing that on. I'm also basing on is 50% of the people I call will not, as soon as I tell them the salary, they say, well.
That's the end of it.
At some point, obviously, the number of veterans, for lack of a better term, I guess, that they're here, they're gonna retire, they're gonna have just the same 2 years gone, 2 years gone. You know, these individuals who've been here and have some
And that
attachment,
reflects-
I guess, to the job, and, you know, they have retirement and they're staying, but the others are just gonna leave.
Yeah. And that's after you train, and it sounds funny, but, you know, the sidewalks, you put them on the sidewalk tractor in the middle of the winter with the snowbanks. If you've been there a few years, you get to know where they are. But if you have to keep training that person, you're driving on people's lawns, you're damaging, now it compounds.
There's a training that obviously takes them longer too, because they don't know the route. You're going back out repairing things, there's institutional knowledge that's lost, and people keep leaving.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm pushing for the DPW, but this is a city, this is police, fire, this is across the board. But obviously I'm advocating for the DPW.
My question's, in your experience in other DPW departments in neighboring, is it an issue town statewide, or is it a Gardner specific issue because of such low?
I think it's statewide at this point. I think with COVID, really had an impact. The private sector can obviously move faster with their salaries, and they adjusted a lot faster. Municipalities are slowly, increasing. I believe Fitchburg has since increased their salary, which my next letter to the council is gonna be about the salaries around them. Just kind of like a internal salary study that we've done just for the DPW. And I've already seen that they're $2 typically higher for labor rates than we are right now, so.
One of the things I think we can do as a committee, if you're so inclined, is notify the mayor that by vote of the Public Service Committee, we endorse the initiative by the director to make the pay scale of DPW and municipal grounds employees competitive with, more competitive than they currently are, if so inclined.
So moved.
Second?
Motion is to notify the mayor that by vote of the City Council Public Service Committee, we endorse the initiative by the Public Works Director to increase the pay scale of Department of Public Works and municipal grounds to be more competitive with other communities in the private sector.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? None. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. I'd ask if you could pass that along to the mayor's office in due course. And it'll appear in our minutes as well, of course. And we can report on that at our next regular council meeting as well. I think it's on our agenda. The correspondence.
I believe it is, yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Director. Department updates. Public Works, again, Mr. Director.
Okay, well, as you know, we're up on Lawrence Street doing the walk. We are scheduled to do the base coat tomorrow and Saturday to go and at least do the driveway aprons and put in the base coat. As luck would have it, the plant that Mass Broken Stone has got struck by lightning on Saturday. I just think it was Saturday night, we had the big storms. They just got the thing up running, I believe it was this morning, up and running.
Where are they located?
Down in Berlin and Holden area.
Okay.
So they actually devastated the plant. So they were flying things in overnight and doing a lot of work. So they set them back a little bit, but they're gonna get the base coat in Friday and Saturday, and then I haven't got a schedule for the top coat, but it's definitely gonna get done for school. So that's the walk.
And just on that topic, I was just, this has affected a lot of property owners, adjacent property owners. Have there been any problems with property owners?
Neighborhood's been fantastic, the residents been helpful, and I think they brought them water and everything. It's just, yeah, they've been very helpful up there. There's been no issues with the residents.
Okay, thank you.
Traffic is a little tight on that road, but other than that, it's been well.
Okay.
Partridge Street is complete, so we're now, I have to send in a request to the state to basically get reimbursed for our Chapter 90. Once we get the money okayed, saying that they're gonna reimburse us for the amount that we paid for Partridge, I will put a request in to do Keys Road, Princeton, in that area. So that's probably scheduled mid-September. I'm gonna be looking to get down in that neighborhood if I can get the okay from the state. So that's tentatively mid-September that project's gonna be going on. I did get word that the state just passed $100 million of additional funding, so that's
In the budget, yeah.
so I think that's 300 grand plus or minus that the city should be seeing. I don't know when, hopefully soon. And that's an additional funding over and on top of our Chapter 90.
Additional Chapter 90 money?
Yep. So that's obviously gonna sit down with the mayor and try to come up with a plan. So I just need the number first to find out exactly how much it's gonna be. We're currently working up on Eaton and Park doing the tree removal. We should be starting the installation of guardrail probably within a couple of weeks. I've reached out to the contractor, putting all new guardrail. I believe it's almost 1,500 or 1,800 feet of guardrail that's gonna be up on the corners and whatnot. It's all marked out. So that's gonna make it safer. Like I said, the road was narrowed slightly, hopefully to reduce a little bit of speed, but it was also narrowed a little bit so that we had more room to put the guardrail on the side of the road. So just kind of twofold. And then lastly, you might see somebody out on the dams inspecting. I have to, every 2 years I have to comply with Pearly Brook and Cowie Brook and have them inspected. So there'll be an engineer doing the dam inspection up on those two locations. So that's all I got.
Okay. Any questions, comments, the director?
Understand, right?
Thank you.
Continuing, survey and engineering, Mr. City Engineer.
Just a quick couple of updates. The Uptown Rotary project, the state had bid that project, they had a low bidder. My last correspondence with Mass DOT was they were going through the process to vet the bid process out. Notice to proceed, I don't know if it's gone out yet, but was told by Mass DOT to expect construction September, October timeframe. So that's coming forward soon. The pedestrian bridge over Route 140, the 25% design had been approved by Mass DOT. We received notification that the funding through Federal Highway and Mass DOT is approved, that we should move ahead with the design process. Part of that process, the 25% design, because of the time frame that it took several years. Some things had changed during the design. There were some cost overruns that our consultant is looking to get. And then we have an estimate for the design, the final design for plan specs and estimate. It's somewhere, I believe it was around $660,000, which clearly I don't have in my budget.
That's the 25% share?
That's the 100%.
Oh,
The
okay.
overruns were, I want to say, around $80,000, which is a lot, but I understand why it happened. So in the course of all of this, I reached out to Mass DOT about possible funding sources. I had a lot of conversations with the project manager at Mass DOT. She kind of ran it up the flagpole of Boston. So I was looking for full amount for the overruns of 25% and 100% design. It seemed like there was a lot of support at the state level because of the importance of the project and what was, kind of the underfunding in this part of the region for things such as bike trails, bridges. It serves a broader community than just Gardner. It serves the region, so Mass DOT, it's an important project. So what we did after, there was a Mass Trails grant that Sophie's office received for the next phase of the bike trail After that was awarded, a letter through the mayor's office went out to Mass DOT seeking funding for the project. So I'm waiting on news on that. I did receive word back from the project manager that there's a lot of support for it, and so I'm hoping for a favorable decision on our request, and so we can get this moving forward. Otherwise, we'll be seeking, in fact, we're meeting tomorrow with Central Mass Regional Planning, who the mayor is using for some grant work. We may seek additional funding as just double down, looking for money for that design. So that's where that stands currently. I hope I hear some news soon and we can pass that along.
What is the regional planning meeting about?
It's just, so the mayor, Central Mass Regional Planning is doing some work for the city in grant writing, helping us get grants. Chris Coughlin and I had suggested to them that there's a grant out there that could possibly provide some funding for that design, so we're gonna meet with them. They'd be preparing the grant if we move forward with that grant application, so that's what that meeting is. There may be some others that we talk about, but that's, in my purview, that's really what I'm trying to get money for. That's all I have for you today.
Is the design work encompassing just the bridge or extending the path out to it?
Just the bridge.
Just the bridge itself?
Yep.
Okay.
So the bridge would connect the piece that's already, that heads to Winchendon.
Yep.
And then at some point, I can't remember if the Mass Trails phase connects to it, but there will be a chunk, but it's rail bed, it's very accessible.
It is,
Yeah, I think in the end, I'm sure someday that will, get paved. But yeah, it's just the 140 piece.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
No, it's not enough.
Continuing. Conservation Commission, Sophie.
Just a couple things today. An update on Park Street Park. The silt fencing will be taken out. The chain link fence was installed, I think earlier this week. And there will be a slight change to where the water truck backs in to fill the pool because of the way the path was paved, and there was a concrete kind of slab put in to prevent
Access.
access to the trail. So that will be changed. And moving on to Bailey Brook, there's some minor changes and additions. Recently, I don't know if anyone heard that there was a huge pine tree that was struck by lightning from one of the storms, and it came down and smashed one of the benches, and the bench got removed, like ripped out of the concrete. So that's a loss there. Other than that, people are using it and are pretty
Been able
happy
to
with
remove the
it.
tree or?
Yeah, it was taken care of, yeah. But I spoke to people, and so far, we're spreading slowly but surely that the park's usable and open. The other thing, kind of piggybacking off of Dane's comments about workers and grass and vegetation maintenance, I'm trying to reach out to get trail volunteers, just in an effort for new trails and the continued maintenance of the existing trails that we have through Gardner. I'm kind of baffled that we don't have like a volunteer group or a paid position for trail maintenance. A lot of municipalities nearby have like a really good established trail crew. So I'm working on that, and I'm open to suggestions or help in any way so I can get that going.
The Mass Trails program that Rob was mentioning having to do with the bike path. The current funding or the current status of plans to extend that, where does that stand as far as, I see it seems to go as far as the Crystal Lake Park, but the fencing ends there, but I know that there are plans to extend it through the to Crystal Lake Park and over across Park Street and eventually onto 140. Where do the various plans stand?
I'm not sure, that was several months ago that I asked the assistant director. She's in charge of that portion of the project,
Mhm.
so, but I could look into it.
Yeah, if you
find
could
out
look
where
into it,
is.
give us, just send us a memo about it, if you don't mind. Just where things stand as far as design work for certain portions, construction work for other portions, where do the various elements of it stand and in what locations?
As luck would have it, there's one bench, two benches up in Leo Drive Park, and the pine tree landed right on the bench. I mean,
It
just,
was very unlucky.
as luck would have it.
There's just two of that whole.
Yes, the whole open field, and it
Yeah.
had to
Kaboom.
be right on it, so,
Yeah.
yeah. But I will get that information to you,
Great, good. Anything else?
that's it.
Okay.
Some questions?
Members?
No, thank you for the update.
If I may, before we move forward, back to my updates, completely neglected one that I was pretty important. So the National Grid billing for our streetlights has been an issue for probably over a year now, since I came back to the city. I finally just heard on Tuesday, I had heard about a month ago, they had kind of formalized their inventory of streetlights that we now own, the LED streetlights. And they were going back, trying to figure out the billing and what credit we should be getting based on the billing rate they've been using versus what they should have been using. I got an email with their updated inventory and a spreadsheet of how they calculated our credit. And as it stands right now, they calculated, going back to January 2019, a $234,000 credit for what they had been billing us compared to what they should have been billing us. I haven't gone through that yet. I will in the next day or two, just kind of wrap my head around it. It's quite a large spreadsheet, a lot of information, but I think that's great news and
Moving in the right direction, there's progress, yeah.
definitely moving in the right direction. They indicated to me the last couple billing periods, I think we're paying $9,000 plus per billing period for our streetlight use. And that came down to under 5,000 or less. So it was a substantial savings where it should be. So moving forward, our billing should be correct, and I don't know how the credit's applied or how they
Calculated?
Yeah, that's not a question I've asked, but I'm sure, I don't know if we'll be paying our monthly bill off that credit until it's gone, or how they work that, but it's good news, and I think we'll be straightened out from here on in on that.
Okay, that is great news, because that's been a lingering issue for some time.
Yep.
It's great.
To build on that, the city has funded typically 125, well, they've had to pay more or less 125 to 130 for streetlights. That's now, we should start seeing for the next 2 or 3 years, it might be zero. We're still gonna have to pay for the maintenance of the lights to install them and whatnot. We have to hire a contractor. I'm going to advocate that the money that the city was budgeting for streetlights, maybe we can put it into the salary account to offset. The city wouldn't see a change in my budget monetarily. That money could be.
Until the credit is used up.
Correct, but at least get us a couple of years.
And then kaboom, where'd all this money?
But the city was paying for it anyway. So
That's true.
just
Well, I appreciate your novel approach. Okay, anything else of the departments?
No, my only question was about the LED lights and brought them back. I was
Address that.
I don't know how I forgot that one. That was the one I really wanted to tell you.
Yeah, no, that was it. I reached out a week or so ago to Jim about it, and that news hadn't come through yet, obviously. So that's great to hear. For some reason I was reading, I was worried they weren't gonna go retroactive with the adjustment. It's part of it, and now you're saying they are.
Yeah, at one point in that email chain, one of the emails gave me the impression that they waffled a little bit.
Prospective.
That's kind of why I
Yeah.
reached out. I was worried that, like, well, now they're saying it's just gonna be going forward, and
Yeah.
that weren't gonna get credit backwards, so I'm glad to hear that. So, thank you.
Councilor requests.
I have nothing.
I have nothing, thank you.
Well, I think it's been an eventful meeting today. I appreciate everybody's participation. And there's a couple of things that we're following up on, one from Sophie, and you'll be communicating with the various entities associated with the Elm Street project.
Yes.
And you'll be communicating with the mayor regarding the vote of council, of the committee rather, on the staffing.
Does an email suffice and copying?
Sure. Maybe copy the human resources director as well. Very good. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes, the meeting stands adjourned. Thank you all.